Good afternoon and welcome to the May 6th meeting of the Human Rights Committee of Council. I'm joined today in the West Committee room by our volunteers of our Human Rights Committee of Council. I don't see Michael Baker, Marie Chabot, Angie Conrad, Danu Gamage, Leslie Klink, Mary Levine, Reese Malone, Karen McCaskill, Phyllis Reed Jarvis, Lizzie Tough, and Ran Yukashi. I'm joined in the gallery today by our Human Rights Committee Coordinator, Ali Reposo, and our clerk, Rebecca Ford, our Director of Human Resources, Angie Kesson, and our Equity Office Manager, Brad West. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here on Treaty 1 territory. It's ancestral land of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dene, and Dakota people, and is the birthplace of the Red River Métis Nation. Before we move forward, I'd like to get a motion to accept the minutes of our March 4th meeting. Anyone? Thank you, Dr. Malone. Seconder? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Madam Clerk, we'll move into delegations.
Absolutely. So we have a longer agenda today, including delegations and presentations. First up, registered in delegation is Ben McGilvery of the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee. He has registered to speak to Report 10, the Inclusive and Accessible Communications motion, as well as the update on the Terms of Reference Review, Report 12. So I will just ask you to unmute Mr. McGilvery. Oops. Sorry, I can't quite hear you yet.
You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. The reason I signed up for the two items on the HRCC agenda is because I'm fully aware of the importance of the first motion on inclusive and accessible communication, as there needs to be a strong and inclusive way to participate in the city meetings and to ensure that each meeting has ASL interpretation in every city meeting. And I'm fully informed that this motion will be of help to the accessibility community. And it's pretty short, but the last item on the agenda, which is the term of reference for the HRCC, and I'm fully aware that the subcommittee currently has a little bit of a problem right now. As I was elected to the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee as Vice Chair, and I know that there needs to be an amendment to the HRCC subcommittee terms of reference to include a citizen member to be a citizen vice chair of the subcommittees. I have met with Councillor Rollins and she asked me to discuss the issues I have received in terms of the subcommittee citizen vice chairs, and I'll be able to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Benjamin. In terms of, first I'll ask any committee members if they have any questions of Mr. McGilvery. Mr. McGilvery, I do want to thank you for your assistance in providing support to the subcommittee for inclusion or accessibility. And I just want you to provide an overview of some of the services that you provide to that subcommittee.
Okay, I can provide it, but if you need Ali to provide it, she could choose if that would help.
Well, I'm asking you, like person to person here, in terms of what advice, what services do you provide to the subcommittee so that it's brought up to the Human Rights Committee of Council?
Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Chair. Basically, what I do is I assist Angie as the chair, and whatever she needs, I help do.
Okay. So in accordance to the subcommittee terms of reference, I mean, there is a chair for the committee, and that chair is responsible for again organizing the information that is discussed and debated and then brought forward to the Human Rights Committee of Council.
Correct.
Again, we value the participation that you provide. And, you know, we are reviewing, you know, on an annual basis, the terms of reference for the Human Rights Committee and as well as for the subcommittee as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Malone?
Thank you so much, Ben. Just so I am understanding, your ask or your hope is for the city to provide ASL at meetings.
Yes.
At our got it. Great, thank you. And for me as a committee member, and also someone who owns a company that has trainers who are ASL, I want to emphasize on the record the importance of having ASL accessible services that are available, even those individuals who may not participate. And if even we're making the assumption that those who participate are of hearing. And so I think that if there's I understand that with ASL is going to also comes with budgets and costs associated with this. And so I'm prepared to even make a motion if that is appropriate at this time for the Human Rights Committee of Council to explore inclusion of ASL at all of our committee meetings, given that we also are recording, and for those who can view our meetings in the future. And also, furthermore, for our openers, for our chair to explain, or perhaps someone, I don't know, I need to kind of word this properly, how to navigate those captioning services at the start of all of our meetings.
Okay.
Dr. Malone, you know, and I know this does appear as an agenda item later on in the agenda. And, you know, where we're currently working, I mean, technology is bringing us forward to be more inclusive in the area of those that are deaf and hard of hearing. You know, we recognize that there's got to be a live component to it for our live meetings. And it's something that truly does need to be considered, as it's not just an accessibility issue, but it's also an inclusion issue, and making sure that individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing are included in those meetings in real time. So thank you for bringing this to the committee's attention. Again, it is something that we'll be speaking to later on in our budget, item number 10. So we can have more discussion and debate at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up in delegation, I would call forward Mr. Doug Mamotiak of the Manitoba Deaf Association. He is registered to be heard with respect to the inclusive and accessible communications. That's report number 10. Good step forward, Mr. Mamotiak.
Thank you for being with committee this morning or this afternoon. You have 10 minutes to speak.
Okay. Well, my name is Doug Mamotiak, and I'm representing the Manitoba Deaf Association. And I'm also involved in the HRCC and have attended meetings on a monthly basis. And so my point of being here today is to discuss some access concerns our community has. So this is all about access to American Sign Language. And so under my comments, the importance of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and Optional Protocol. Article 9 specifies enabling persons with disabilities to participate fully in all aspects of life, including access to information and communication, including the provision of professional sign language interpreters. And my second point, the Accessibility for Manitobans Act, which has been enacted as law in our community. Accessibility of public events. Under 15.1, an organization that holds a public event must take reasonable measures to ensure that notice of the event is given in a manner that is accessible to persons disabled by barriers. So reiterating, notice of events is given in ample time. Also that the event is held in a meeting space that is accessible. So that also entails how the environment is set up so that the deaf person is able to clearly see the interpretation and therefore access is gained. Number 3, many deaf children and immigrants in Manitoba have difficulty accessing and learning English and or French. Too often, we see deaf children and adults learn the hearing people's language, not first having any language base. It would be important for them to first learn a visual, natural signed language, such as American Sign Language, ASL, Langue de Signes Québécois, LSQ, and Indigenous Sign Languages, ISL. And then once they have a strong first language foundation, they can then learn other languages such as English or French. Point 4, United Nations Convention recognizes the importance of ensuring that deaf and deafblind children receive an education and that it be delivered in environments which maximize academic and social development. This convention affirms the right of deaf children, adults, and immigrants to receive education and information in sign languages, such as at deaf schools and in other education programs. Point 5, we value and need professional qualified sign language interpreters. Sign languages used here are ASL, LSQ, and ISL, as previously mentioned. So sign language interpreters facilitate communication and are knowledgeable in the languages of deaf, hard of hearing, and hearing people. The provincial and municipal governments should review and ensure that funds are set for public events and meetings and election campaigns in order that interpretation be provided. So again, they must ensure that funds are available for provision of qualified sign language interpreters in remote and rural areas as well. Point 6, use of technologies such as visual aids and video captioning should be used to provide access in remote or rural areas. Previously, Mayor Brian Bowman, former mayor of Winnipeg, and police officers gave their presentations with ASL interpretation during times of COVID-19. So the deaf community watched those broadcasts regularly. There were ASL interpreters on TV and for videos during the emergencies and shootings in the United States. So interpreters picture in picture were provided for those sorts of broadcasts. Use of technologies such as visual aids, for example, interpreter picture in picture as you see on the Zoom screen, and video captioning should be used to provide access in remote or rural areas. There should be closed captioning provided for accessibility on computers, laptops, and cell phones when interpreters are not available. In closing, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation this morning or this afternoon. Thrown by that. Are there any questions of committee members? So I'd like to ask one question. Mr. Mamotiak, have you ever appeared in delegation at one of our council committee meetings? And if so, have you appeared virtually, and how would you communicate virtually to council through remote delegation?
In the past, I was a committee representative for Manitoba Deaf Association, and also was involved in the MAO before and attended meetings regularly. I was a part of the committee that helped to develop standards and regulations related to the AMA. And so I brought up the perspective of issues related to my community, the deaf and hard of hearing community, and was able to provide input on what our community needs were in terms of access. And as far as the city's committee, the HRCC, I became a part of that 2 months ago.
So yeah, my specific question is, how would you communicate if you were appearing in delegation via virtual presence?
Well, with interpretation provided on Zoom as you see today, or as you see the interpreters in the room here for face-to-face meetings.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you very much for your presentation today. We'll now move into reports. And our first report is a presentation for the Manitoba Association of Seniors Communities. And I welcome to the stage a woman who needs no introduction, but I will be gracious in providing one, Connie Newman.
I'll just reach past you.
Okay. Oh, good.
Oh, wow.
Cyberspace. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for providing us some time to a very important subject in our world.
Oh,
Just get share screen.
sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
No problem.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, it didn't resume. I see.
You're good.
That's it. To everybody online, good afternoon. I'm hoping you can see and hear me. Yes, they can. That's very good. I'm going to start off with a thanks a big bunch for allowing us time today. Very much appreciated. And I'm going to follow my script because if I don't, we're going to be all over the map.
Wait, could you make a formal introduction to everybody, please?
I'm Connie Newman, Executive Director, Manitoba Association of Senior Communities. And on my immediate left and partner in all of this with older adults is Jim Hamilton. He's one of the consultants that works with us moving stuff forward.
Thank you both for being here.
Now, okay?
Now we're okay.
On the screen, do we need a more age-friendly Winnipeg? age. I want everybody, including online, when you walk into a room, what's the first thing you notice about people? And when I look around this room, it's the same thing. We tend to, I've got gray hair, I've got glasses. Am I older? Sure I am. So's he. Now, does this work? Who we are. We connect with 84 member groups, member organizations across the province. In Winnipeg, we've got about 30 plus member centers that gather together older adults. Half of those centers are partially funded by Manitoba Health. In Winnipeg, it's the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. Some of those groups are located in city facilities, our leisure centers, our community centers. Now in 2014, City of Winnipeg became an age-friendly milestone community and received $50,000 from the province of Manitoba for age-friendly initiatives. And to me, that's an important piece because over the last few years, the whole age-friendly dynamic, we need to bring it back to the forefront. And in 2015, I'm a little bit off track here, but so be it. 2015, province of Manitoba, there are more of us over the age of 65 than there are teenagers. We need to think about that impact. MASK as an organization recently received 4 years of funding for social prescribing from a private donor. This initiative, and I want you to think about connections, is connecting our healthcare providers, doctors, nurse practitioners, with senior resource coordinators. They do one-on-one with older adults in their communities, and Winnipeg's got 11 communities under the regional health. My friend Jim.
Thanks, Connie. I've been working on age-friendly community development since it started in 2006. And I've often said, if not for ageist attitudes, we wouldn't need the age-friendly communities movement. Ageism is a life course issue. It impacts people of all ages, employment opportunities if you're 17 or 77, housing opportunities if you're 19 or 99. So it's something that follows us through the life course. Older people are often seen as dependent, a burden, a cost to driver. But in reality, older people make many positive contributions. They are employers, they're employees, they're innovators, they're caregivers. So we need to start to change that dialogue from cost to investment in transportation, investment in age-friendly communities. And the language, the World Health Organization, which guides a lot of the work that Connie and I are involved in, WHO and many others refer to older people as older adults, moving away from the word senior. Just by way of example, with the WHO, life expectancy in Nigeria is 62 years on average. In Canada, it's 82 years. So the WHO chooses to look at older people as people in the second half of their life. So in Nigeria, that would be a 31-year-old. In Canada, a 41-year-old. And if we were stuck on the notion of 65, there would be very, very few seniors in Nigeria, as an example. So globally, you can see from this slide that a lot of attention is being drawn to many issues of aging and ageist attitudes. A couple of examples. On October 1st, every year, International Day of Older Persons is a UN initiative to draw attention to and examine issues that impact older people. Next month, June the 15th, every year, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. It's estimated that 1 in 10 older Canadians experience some form of elder abuse. Keeping in mind, elder abuse is certainly underreported and the rates are likely much higher. Most abuse happens at the hands of a caregiver, often a family member. and people are inclined to endure that abuse in return for a service that's offered to that person. Might be transportation, might be financial, other forms. The UN Decade of Healthy Aging, 2021 to 2030, so we're into the decade right now, expresses concern that despite the predictability of population aging and its accelerating pace, to Connie's point about 65 and 15, the world is not sufficiently prepared to respond to the rights and the needs of older people. We know all about the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was authored in 1948. However, ageist attitudes still impact many older people from realizing their human rights. Hence, ongoing pressure at the United Nations, meetings coming up later in May, for the drafting of a convention on the rights of older people. Recently released, the UN Global Report on Ageism defines ageism, summarizes best evidence about the scale and impact, along with strategies to reduce it. Action recommendations include evidence-based strategies can manifest in the way of laws or policies, improved research efforts that can support educational initiatives, and building a movement to change the narrative around age and aging for people of all ages. So, closer to home, we do have a growing population of older people in Winnipeg. Our association did make contributions to the Our Winnipeg 2045 process. Found ourselves a bit disappointed with the outcome. The plan largely is silent on older people, so we still see that as a bit of a gap. We have seen and continue to see issues associated with long-term care, where neither Canada nor Manitoba performed well. Over 280,000 long-term care deaths in Canada during the COVID years. And just released the report on Lions Place titled A Betrayal of Trust. The sale of Lions Place dismantled a community of older people, resulted in a significant loss of affordable housing options, and for the authors raised the conclusion that the sale can also be conceptualized as organizational elder neglect and abuse. So clearly, we all still have some distance to cover. So just moving into age-friendly communities, Connie will share more about the movement. But let me say, from the work I've done in community development and health promotion, it is a unique model. It's the only one I've seen that combines the social environment, the people part of a community, with the built environment, the place part of a community. And we know that Winnipeg and all other communities offer resources, but also barriers. And those resources and those barriers impact our ability to do the things that we need to do when we want to do them. Is Winnipeg age-friendly? Yes. Can it become more age-friendly? Absolutely. Connie?
On the national level, we as an organization have three representatives, Public Health Agency of Canada, Age-Friendly Reference Group, myself and Mary Mitchell, the Manitoba government, Christina Rabbit from Seniors and Long-Term Care, and AMM, Association of Manitoba Municipalities, Nancy Penner, who is the mayor of Morden, sits on that national committee. When we look at age-friendly and we look at the city of Winnipeg, there are 8 domains. And 4 of them are on the screen right now. Outdoor spaces, we've all heard this, the sidewalks in the city of Winnipeg. Anybody of any age with a mobility challenge has a problem with icy sidewalks. That's a huge concern. Transportation, I sit on the Transit Plus Advisory Committee. There needs to be support to that committee because, again, moving from place to place is a huge issue. And I take a person who is living in a personal care home, had a stroke, is disabled, and we use Transit Plus to go this past weekend to Fort White. Very good place. Housing is in the news. Housing for all ages is part of. social participation. I shared a little bit at the beginning about our social prescribing initiative. Think about the people you know that are isolated and where do they go? And are our city facilities open for all ages? And I include in that the leisure centers as well as our community centers. Another 4, respect and social inclusion. What is the city of Winnipeg doing to connect older adults and youth? Think about the facilities in the city purview. Are they welcoming to all ages? Civic participation, employment, volunteers in our city, volunteers of all ages. The number of nonprofit groups in this city doing their best to make our city a safe place, friendly places to live. Is our city inclusive, diverse, and accessible in all its services? I challenge you all to check it out, because I know it's not. Communication. Does everyone in our city know the many benefits provided by this city? And there are many. Our newcomers, our older adults. Because I am in the position I am, I know there are benefits, but those benefits are not always communicated to people beyond city staff. And there's many nonprofits out there that, depends on who you know, you find out about stuff. Community and health services are health workers collaborating with city staff. We have networks of they're involved with Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. We need them connecting to the health authority. There are many pathways that the 2 silos working together would be better for all our citizens. Moving forward, MASC is connecting to all levels of government. We recently met with the Minister of Health, including the Deputy Minister and the Assistant Deputy, on seniors and long-term care. We're involved at the federal level with the Age-Friendly Reference Group. We are also now involved with a nonprofit, Help Age Canada, on community-based services for seniors. We need to bring everybody together to do the best for all of us as we age, and we're all aging. We're also connected to the Manitoba Chamber, the Winnipeg Chamber, and the Assiniboine Chamber around the whole idea of age-friendly businesses. We need to think about connecting to all across all sectors. Margaret Gillis, president of the International Longevity Center of Canada, stated, "We must use our voices to ensure older persons' human rights are strengthened. To that end, we have established the Canadian Coalition Against," I can't see it on the screen, but thank you, that's what I thought it was, but I was, the coming together of major aging organizations and individuals to confront ageism. We need social change, no matter what age. On that, soon the older person, 1 out of 4 people will be older over the age of 41, given what Jim just told you. So think about your age today. How many older people died through the heat in BC last year? COVID saw too many leave us because they were denied PPE. In 2022, 1 out of 10 older people experienced elder abuse. 1 out of 10. Look around this room. That becomes scary. Why are older people being denied? All of the above are violations of the rights of an older person. Please share this with your networks. That link is part of the PowerPoint that I believe it's 30 minutes, but it talks about the age-friendly and back up. Age-friendly videos and stories. We recently released a video on respectful interaction with older adults. It's on that site. It's about 30 minutes. You don't want to listen today. But please, on behalf of us, take a look at it. Very, very important. We all need to learn because of the aging population. That's who we are. Thank you. Question?
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Rollins.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation and all your service to the community, both of you. You had criticisms of our Winnipeg Complete Communities. 'Tis true, age-friendly mentioned once under the equitable service in line with social cultural rights. Talk to me about your criticisms.
You want to go ahead? I know what you're going to say, so go for it.
I guess one of the perspectives that we tried to bring forward was the voice of older people, and the model that was developed by the World Health Organization to create age-friendly communities was based on the voice of older people in developing economy countries as well as developed countries. It's a focus group process. And we did replicate that in communities across Canada. Portage la Prairie participated in the pilot project along with 3 other Canadian cities. When the funding was provided to the city of Winnipeg, it was predicated on the previous Our Winnipeg planning process, which did not hear from older people specifically. It was limited at community levels and open to all ages. So we just feel like that specific voice of older people hasn't been clearly heard, hasn't been as clearly heard as it could be. So we're looking to see some, a bit more of a reflection of that in the Our Winnipeg 2045.
And I did what possibly you did. I put in that report seniors. I put in that report older people. There's not much that came up. And that's part of one of my personal criticisms, because it's like, as a city and as a province, we gear a lot to young people, daycare, nursery school, daycare, middle-aged teenagers. We've got youth programs for teenagers. Some of them are free, some of them are just minor. And when you look at for our aging population, where's the focus on older adults? This city, we're trying hard, needs to pay attention and needs to communicate that. Because I sit at some city committees. I was at a session Friday morning. Had I not been there as one of the older persons, GCWCC is going through a strategic plan. Very good. But older people are not part of the invite, those kinds of things. And personally, I'd like to see, it needs to change. Because when you look at the numbers in by 2050, I won't be here, but the bulk of the people will be older adults. And we also have huge newcomer population in this city. And many of them have older adults that are isolated because of language barriers. And when a community club or a leisure center doesn't open its doors for space for people to gather, I have got a concern about that.
we've been doing a lot of work the last few years with the general council and a great working relationship, using some of their facilities for some of the community events that we've been hosting workshops, that kind of thing. So certainly there's a heightened awareness with the council about the opportunities but still lots of work to do when you look at their inventory of senior, older people focused programs. It's pretty light, and a lot of the facilities basically have nothing at all. So it just, they're tuned in, we're working, and it's, again, we see that as an opportunity, an investment to be made, as opposed to the cost of community centers sitting empty when it could be full of folks.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you for your presentation. I do have a couple of questions to ask. And it was kind of referred to it in your presentation, and it's something anecdotally that I'm aware of as well, that certain cultural groups revere older adults. And as our population continues to grow, largely through immigration, are there any best practices that we could observe and implement here with respect to older adults, as we're seeing new immigrant families coming in with their older adult parents, grandparents, to assist in the transition here in Canada?
For me, one of the biggest learning, you're always learning, doesn't matter how old you are. Many of our cultural groups want to gather within their culture. And we need to allow that to happen. We need to facilitate that happening. And I'm going to say it, all city staff need to be welcoming and inclusive of all cultures. And that goes to the person at the desk. That goes to the person pushing the broom. All of that, because we need to be inclusive. That to me is part of the first best practice. Education at all levels within the city. That includes the elected officials.
In terms of your work with the Transit Plus Advisory Committee, have you spoken delegation at Public Works, where that department reports up through?
Janice Lukes is the counselor.
Yeah, she's the chair.
She last year, I think twice, came to that committee. Has that committee gone directly to Public Works from a staff point of view? I'm not sure.
Okay. But you also have an opportunity with that committee to speak in delegation at Public Works and address some of the issues, the longstanding issues, just like you're doing here.
Thank you.
One of the other things that you mentioned is about social inclusion. I know that, and this is something I talked about, and Jim, I think we've chatted about it in the past before with COVID, and everybody was talking about economic recovery, but there was nothing mentioned about social recovery. And we recognize that COVID, in the beginning was really targeted towards our older adult community. And so they were very much isolated, and we're seeing the impacts of that now in terms of mental health. So from a social recovery perspective, what more can we do to make sure that there is that inclusion, there is that wellness check-in, especially in our older adult community?
We have some awesome programs going on in this city. I'm going to say it again and again because we do. Unfortunately, not everybody out there knows it. Our paramedic service, our connection with the regional health authority at the community level, that's another one that needs to be fostered and encouraged. I personally worry about those children that were 4 and 5 years old, didn't see any other kids in their developmental stage, and where are we at today? The more we can do to make people aware that coming out of COVID, social connection is huge of all ages. And I'd like to see our leisure centers and many of our community centers open up more than they are because they can be gathering places with skeleton staff to just monitor what's going on in many areas of this city, and they're not.
We're hearing still as high as a third of residents in 55 plus buildings that basically haven't come out of their suite since COVID started. Not sure they are not sure who to listen to, who to trust, and how to move, even though there's tenant resource coordinator supports right in the building, senior resource finders in their neighborhood. Just not ready. My grandson graduated high school last year, basically went for 3 years, never went into a classroom. It was pretty much all virtual. So you think about, the relationships in those high school years. So none of that. So again, age, it's a life course challenge that we need to always be mindful of, that we're seeing a lot of older Winnipeggers impacted still in terms of social participation, inclusion. A lot of younger Winnipeggers with some of the same kinds of challenges.
And that's why when we were approached for the social prescribing initiative, we grabbed onto it as an organization because it's a way to help when family physicians know somebody's isolated, can refer them to somebody in the community. Huge.
And last question. I know that last time we ran into each other, it was, I believe, at the Volunteer Manitoba trade show that they had at Viscount
Yes.
Gord.
Yes.
What were your impressions of that? Because I saw a lot of people who were signing up to volunteer, and there was a lot of seniors or older adult facilities. I'm going to use the correct vernacular. That were there signing up volunteers to work with older seniors, adult seniors, or adult.
It's fine. I got it. To me, that whole event blew me away.
Absolutely.
Blew me away because, and for those of you who don't know, there were over 2,000 people of all ages that passed through the conference room at the Viscount Gord, table displays of anybody needing a volunteer. And I figured I'd do some work because, and it was packed and I was talking to people all day. So people want to help, they want to be engaged. Lots of newcomers. There's another one, you asked the question. Newcomers want to learn English.
Yeah.
And they need to be in a social environment, talking to people, speaking English. And they're dying to get out and get out and volunteer. Huge.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation today. Much appreciated. And I encourage you to, again, reach out to
Public
Public
Works,
Works.
right here.
There you go.
I'm not gonna forget that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk,
All
next
right.
delegation or next presentation.
Could I just have a motion to receive that presentation, just to let the committee know the presentation that has been supplied by Ms. Newman will be published on the minutes, including the link to that video.
Okay, I need a mover. Thank you.
Lindsay.
Lizzie, thank you. I need a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. On to the next presentation, Innovation Partnership Winnipeg. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had Ruben Garang registered to make this presentation. I don't have him in the meeting. I had sent him an email maybe about 15 minutes ago inquiring if he was running late. Have not heard back as of yet. Perhaps
Move it to next month,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Okay,
we can ask the coordinator to reach out about the July 15th meeting with Mr. Garang.
okay.
Have a
So
mover
is
for
that a
that?
motion or is that just,
I make a motion to move it to next meeting.
okay, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. That's moved to our July 15th meeting. Next is report from the chair. So I will provide my reports. I should have picked a bigger font. Let's see here. Okay, as chair of the Human Rights Committee, I have the privilege of engaging directly with the heart of our community. And this report outlines my journey through the multitude of events and meetings since our last gathering. each moment furthering my commitment to human rights, inclusivity, and as well the well-being of every member of our community. My activities commenced on March 8th, International Women's Day. I continue to draw strength and inspiration from the many women in my personal life who have shaped and molded many of my perspectives. Professionally, I work with so many accomplished women in a variety of fields, and I'm continually amazed and deeply impressed by the remarkable accomplishments across a diverse array of industries, from leadership roles in technology and finance to pioneering breakthroughs in science and medicine. Women are achieving extraordinary feats that not only break barriers, but also inspire future generations. Their resilience, intellect, and unwavering commitment to excellence serve as a testament to their immense capabilities and determination. Witnessing their achievements reminds me of the boundless potentials that exist when talent and opportunity converge, underscoring the importance of creating environments where all individuals can thrive and contribute their unique talents to society. On March 10th, Mayor Gillingham, Deputy Lukes, and I attended Emmanuel Fellowship Church on their Sunday service. This was a great opportunity for us all to participate in their service and see how other denominations practice their faith. We honored, on March 13th, we honored the outgoing members of the Human Rights Committee of Council. We thank all of those who attended and those who could not. I was extremely honored to attend and share greetings at the Indigenous Language Conference held here in Winnipeg at the Hotel Port Garry, March 14th to 16th. The Commissioner of Indigenous Languages, Dr. Ronald Ignace, spoke about the importance of retaining heritage languages as a means of preserving culture. The fact that many Indigenous languages were forbidden to be spoken in Canada serves as a dark moment in Canadian history, but we must continue to encourage the use of mother tongue as a bridge from one generation to the next. On March 16th, I attended the 56th anniversary of the Afro-Caribbean Association of Manitoba. The theme of Harambee, which in Swahili means all pulled together, is a testament to the spirit of the Caribbean community who work together to build community, and Harambee emphasizes the power of working together, pooling resources, and leveraging collective strengths to uplift and empower communities. This concept underscores the importance of social cohesion, mutual aid, and shared responsibility in pursuing positive change and addressing systemic issues. By embracing Harambee, communities can tap into their collective potential, increase inclusivity, and build resistance, ultimately creating environments where everybody can thrive and succeed. On March 25th, I was honored to host the flag of Greece in honor of their independence. Members of the Greek community attended City Hall to witness their flag being flown with pride at the City Hall that they can call home. April is known as Sikh Heritage Month. First launched in 2015, Sikh Heritage Month here in Manitoba was officially recognized for a fifth straight year at the Manitoba Legislature. I was delighted to attend and kick off the event for 2024 at the Manitoba Legislature on April 9th. It is very important to recognize this month and the significant contributions and stories that the community provides now and for future generations. On April 11th, I attended the Multi-Faith Breakfast where the Premier of Manitoba was the keynote speaker. One of his challenges to the attendees was to consider a modernizing and opening prayer for members of the Manitoba Legislature that would be reflective of all faiths that is represented here in Manitoba. Following that day, in recognition of Sikh Heritage Month, I had the honor of serving as the official host of the Manitoba Sikh community as we raised the flag, the Sikh flag, on April 12th. A very elaborate ceremony took place with reverence displayed from all members of the community. Later on that day, I had the privilege to attend the Manitoba Legislature for the second annual Turban Day. MLA Diljit Brar gave a very moving speech on the acceptance and anti-bullying, a theme that resonated with me as we continue to extol these virtues at the City of Winnipeg. On Sunday, April 14th, I attended multiple events, including the presentation of Hockey Lives Here by Councillor Sharma, held in the Maples Ward. This event showcased professional hockey players who were trailblazers in their sport, opening opportunities for new generations of cultures to experience and participate in one of Canada's national pastimes. Apparently not the Winnipeg Jets, though. April is of particular importance to Sikhs. The Saki is one of the most prominent events in the Sikh faith and is commonly celebrated in the middle of the month. The Saki commemorates the founding of Sikh faith in 1699 and the formation of Khalsa. I was happy to attend the Vaisakhi event in the evening of April 14th and watch so many great performances of young adults. On April 15th, it was a very important and exciting day for me as my office worked along with Councillor Vivian Santos and Al Weeb, a former member of the Human Rights Committee of Council, to present the second annual Homelessness Symposium at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. The symposium focused on the right to housing, whatever that might look like. Practitioners from across Canada's non-for-profit sectors gathered to hear from those with lived experience of homelessness in an effort to understand what services are necessary and what barriers must be overcome to assist those currently experiencing homelessness. I'm encouraged by the work and commitment that our stakeholder partners demonstrated. Together, we can solve the issue of homelessness, and it starts with providing the respect and dignity to all. In conclusion, these engagements, from a policy discussion to cultural celebrations, embody my dedication as the chair of the Human Rights Committee to learning and advancing our commitment to a community where everyone will feel valued and supported. Madam Clerk, that is my report. I will move it for acceptance as if finished. Do I have a mover? Councilor Rowland. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. We'll now move on to the report from the coordinator.
Wonderful. So I do have two reports. I won't go through both of them. The first report is because I was not here. I was in the hospital due to an accident in March 4th. So I wanted to make sure that they were all included in this meeting as well. So the first coordinator report, if anybody has any questions or would like to ask me after, please feel free by any means to ask me about that. For the coordinator report from May 6th, I will go through just some of the things that I wanted to highlight in the events and meetings. I won't read verbatim each of the meetings, but I will highlight some of the points under my events and meetings attended. So on March 21st, I attended the Indigenous Newcomer Engagement Sector Table that is facilitated by IPW, Immigration Partnership Winnipeg, with members from nonprofits organizations. And on April 11th, I had the pleasure of attending the CPHR Manitoba Excellence Award Gala and was happy to watch HR services win an award, as well as have the Awareness and Action Series make it to the top 5 in the province under another award category. So congratulations, guys, for that. And on April 15th, I too attended the Homeless Symposium that was put on by Al Weeb, former HRCC member, with support from Senior Advisor Davis Hunter and our chairperson, Councillor Chambers. It was a wonderful event. On April 22nd, I attended the Manitowabi Organizing Committee meeting, and it was a really great meeting. I was invited to it, and there is an opportunity for folks on this committee or anybody watching to volunteer should they wish. There is a link to register on their website. Otherwise, you can purchase tickets. I believe that's this weekend that it's coming up. Purchase tickets to attend the festival. It looks really, really great. And I met with all the other coordinators from the City of Winnipeg committees on April 23rd, and we agreed that we'd like to continue to meet on a continual basis to make sure that we're not, duplicating work efforts. And so that was really wonderful. Just a general update for the committee. There's more events and meetings attended underneath that, but just to be mindful of time and not read everything off. General update for the committee is you've all received an invitation to the Winnipeg Police Service recruitment grad class ceremony. So if you are able to attend, there's a phone number that I have sent out to you. I can resend it if anybody needs it. If you would like to attend, you've all been invited. I've reached out to all of the city councillors and their EAs to introduce myself, the Human Rights Committee, and the subcommittee as well, encouraging each to use the HRCC subcommittees as a referral place for human rights issues. And I am in the middle of developing a master database that includes categories such as access, disability, peace-related, age-friendly, equity, diversity, immigration, Indigenous, and poverty and homelessness. So this database is going to act This database will be filled with agencies and nonprofits that exist in Winnipeg under the applicable categorical tab. And the database includes their contact information, will ultimately act as a hub for the HRCC to use and liaise within the community. And following the development of this, I'll be sending a sort of a welcome and introduction letter, including myself and the HRCC and its subcommittees. And I will use this database to solicit more presentations for the Human Rights Committee. And for budget and finance, the 2024 budget proposal has been drafted and submitted. And so we will have a space for that at the meeting today. And outlined in the routine budget update, the only items that I would really draw your attention to today is that we have provided a few different donations to the Immigration Partnership Winnipeg for their newcomer welcome and inclusion fair, which we support every year, and $500 to the Manitoba Human Rights Student Association graduation gala, and $800 to support sexual assault recovery and healing, otherwise known as SARA. And so I wanted to thank the committee for those who have previously met with me in discussions with brainstorming a formal grant request process. I have finished it finally, and I'm very excited about it. And I was setting it out to the committee members just to provide some comments, see what you guys think, see what everybody's thoughts are. I used the Winnipeg 150 grant as a kind of a template, and also what the Winnipeg Food Council is doing, I thought was really awesome. So I've combined those two things, and I will be sending it out. I've already shown it to the chair, and we think that this is a really good way to go about it. So I will send that out to everyone following this meeting. And that's all that I had for my May 6th coordinator report. If there's any questions.
Any questions of any committee members? Seeing none, I'll need a motion to accept it as information. So moved. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Reports from the subcommittees. Going back to you.
For sure. So I recognize that there is one report submitted, and that would be from Angie Conrad. If you wanted to speak to the subcommittees report.
Sure. Pardon me. Sure. So I'll speak to the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee. Just two updates really. We had a regular meeting on Tuesday, March 19th, and we welcomed and provided an orientation to 16 new members of the group. So a really substantial effort in building the group and bolstering the membership. New members came from a variety of backgrounds and subject matter expertise in accessibility and inclusion. So a really broad range of folks coming on board. And during the roundtable, we asked each member to introduce themselves, if they're, have an affiliation, and why they joined the subcommittee, and a hot topic in accessibility and inclusion that they would like to see the subcommittee address. So we had a very robust discussion. Following the meeting, we recorded the hot topics and came up with 3 main focus areas. So that's the built environment, transit, and access to communication. And on April 16th, we had another regular meeting where in person at the Carol Shields Auditorium at Millennium Library. And the purpose of this was to acquaint the committee members, just because we had so many new folks, wanted to put actual faces to faces and then go back to being virtual. So again, another robust discussion around the 3 focus areas, and had a brainstorming session and came up with a variety of initiatives under these 3 focus areas to tackle. And basically, we've acknowledged that some of the items require further background and research. So we will be relying on the HRCC coordinator for her assistance in that area, but there was a high level of engagement. So happy to take questions.
I'm really impressed with the amount of new members that you've been able to recruit, and I'm certain there will be no shortage of dialogue and discourse back and forth. So congratulations. Are there any questions of committee members? Seeing none, I'll need a motion to accept this as information.
Sorry, just to confirm, one report from subcommittees this month?
Yeah, so one was submitted, but I do believe that there's also a report that is going to be provided verbally by Mary Levine, who's the chair of the Equity and Diversity Subcommittee.
Okay, yeah. Mary, please.
Hello. Yes, I do have a report from the Equity and Diversity Subcommittee. So we last met on April 9th, and we are going to be developing our own decision-making process. But for now, we agreed as a group to follow the HRCC's one. And the subcommittee voted to present a statement to HRCC at the next meeting today regarding a call for ceasefire in Gaza. So our statement is that we call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The Equity and Diversity Subcommittee calls for the immediate ceasefire in Gaza. We stand with the mayor in denouncing any form of hate or discrimination, be it anti-Semitic, anti-Islamic, or anti-Palestinian. As a human rights city, the Equity and Diversity Subcommittee believes that a call for a ceasefire in Gaza from the city of Winnipeg will help reinforce our values of peace, pluralism, and anti-hate. It will also support and align with similar ceasefire calls from the Manitoba government and the Canadian government. So Rebecca, I can submit this in writing afterwards for the record if that's something that needs to be done. Let me know. I can email it to you. So to continue with the report, the subcommittee has developed recommendations for HRCC as requested a couple of meetings back regarding the 2S LGBTQ plus anti-hate actions. So I believe that's agenda number 8 coming up. So we can handle it then. So we do have a working group that we have created to explore annually recognizing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we also have recruited some additional subcommittee members, not as many as the accessibility and inclusion folks, but a few more around the table. It's always great to have other views. And I was also, like Ali, able to attend the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources Manitoba Excellent Award Gala. And again, congratulations to the city for their nominations and victories. And just a reminder that all HRCC members are always welcome to attend subcommittee meetings. Our next meeting will be the second Tuesday of the month at noon. That's my report.
Thank you very much, Mary. Are there any questions with respect to the Equity and Inclusion Subcommittee? Seeing none, we'll need somebody to move this as information. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Move on to report number 6. That is the contract of the Human Rights Coordinator. Does the coordinator need to leave?
That would be appropriate, yes.
Yes.
I'll text her. Can you disperse this motion?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'll ask Councillor Rollins to take the chair.
Yes. And the chair recognizes Councillor Chambers, or who will be presenting. This typically for human resources, we go in camera, but so the motion will be just to move this, Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, so we've reviewed the coordinator's contract, which is consistent with the contracts of community coordinators in different departments. Some have been internalized and been absorbed as city staff, but for those that are community coordinators, this is the consistent remuneration. We've looked at a 2% pay increase. That's cost of living. And I feel it's online with, again, what other coordinators are being paid at the city of Winnipeg. So with that, I move this motion.
Is there a seconder or any seconder? All right, all those in favor, we'll call the question. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll get Ms. Raposo back into the meeting.
Thank you. I'll take the chair.
Yeah.
Because she is number 7. budget. Okay, we're on to item number 7, which is the annual budget for the Human Rights Committee Council. So I'll turn that over to you, Ellen.
Absolutely. So we did have just a little tiny cut in our budget from last year's 138,760 was the 2023 budget. This year is 125,112. I'm just looking on my online here. It changes the format online when I submit. So sorry about that. But I tried to outline our budget as thoroughly as possible, looking at what worked last year, what didn't work, and areas that we could maybe put some more attention to. So if there's any questions about any of the budget lines that I have done or concerns or anything at all, please do let me know. Otherwise, pretty straightforward here.
Just a slight clarification here, because we have your salary on this budget line at 60,000 is the proposal. The 2% increase. So if there's
An adjustment.
if we can make an adjustment, that would help when it moves up to council and is appropriately codified.
Good.
So I think we need to move 1,200.
Yes. Was it 12 or 12? It's 12, yeah, 1,200, 2%. So we'll make that adjustment before it goes up to council. Or do we need a motion for it?
It would be ideal if we could get this motion, because it will have to go up to Executive Policy Committee and Council. It would be good if we could highlight or identify here, unless we want to recommend that someone does that at Executive Policy Committee.
To move this along, I'm prepared to move today. We'll look at it at Executive Policy Committee. Council does direct budget, so I'm sure there'll be considerations, but not knowing what discussion took place, we'll revisit this at Executive Policy Committee. So move for today.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, in terms of the actual budget itself, I'm looking at the grants donation support line. And I know that we've tasked you with the responsibility to create a grants program. And so part of the discussion will be in terms of how we educate or advertise to the public that this grant exists. Because while we do want it to be used for different programming, we're also aware that once it does go out for public consumption, it could be oversubscribed within the first month or so. So we do have to come up with a strategy where we are providing information to the public that this grant exists, but cautious in the sense that we don't want it oversubscribed, within the first month or so. And we'll have budget throughout the year for the range of different events that happen throughout the year. So that's my only comments. Other than that, can we have somebody move the motion to accept the 2024 annual budget? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. On to item 8, update on demonstrations against 2S LGBTQIA plus children's rights and freedoms.
I believe Mary was the mover on this one. Mary, would you like to speak to your motion?
I believe that the motion has been provided and it's quite lengthy, so I won't read it. But yes, as requested by HRCC a couple of meetings ago, we have presentations and delegations from many groups, and based on their recommendations, we have come up with this motion to present to HRCC today.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you read the result into the record?
Certainly. Be it resolved that as a clear statement of the city's support for 2S LGBTQIA plus rights and protections, that the committee coordinator be directed to initiate the creation of a new subcommittee of the Human Rights Committee of Council in order to combat hate and offer education with the proposed structure. One, that the subcommittee include the City of Winnipeg Equity Office and participation of departments, unions, and stakeholders. Two, that the subcommittee be assisted with funding from the Human Rights Committee of Council annual operating budget. And three, that the subcommittee's mandate include ensuring the interests and needs of the 2S LGBTQIA+ communities are reflected in city programs and service delivery, providing policy advice on strategies aimed at elimination of barriers faced by 2S LGBTQIA+ communities when accessing city programs and services, reviewing emerging issues and trends of significance to the 2S LGBTQIA+ community as it relates to city services and programs, working with the trans and gender diverse organizations, advocating for greater access to gender affirming healthcare, facilitating access to trans and gender diverse safer spaces for those accessing services and for City of Winnipeg staff, developing procedures for easier access to identity documents, developing policies for access to sports and recreation, reviewing resources available for gender-based violence for City of Winnipeg staff and ensuring they are trans inclusive and competent, including Rainbow Resource Center and Clinic in the resources for gender-based violence, communicating a clear stance against the rising tide of hate and violence whenever and wherever acts occur, hosting workshops on combating hate with the City of Winnipeg staff and seasonal staff, implementing respectful workplace language, conducting a City of Winnipeg review of staff regarding anti-hate and hate-based experience, throughout the City of Winnipeg to better understand where it is surfacing and get a better scope of the issue, advocating zero tolerance anti-discrimination policies that includes reference to sexual orientation and gender identity, gender expression, designing a proposed policy whereby groups who request a permit for a rally on city property must commit to adhering to safe space policies where signs and speeches may not discriminate against protected groups, researching mechanisms to deter and ban groups from city property who welcome individuals known to be neo-Nazi or white nationalist spokespeople or use language that suggests harm to 2S LGBTQIA+ people, such as groomer and pedophile. Investigating gaps in human rights legislation, which requires a party to file a formal complaint against another party or parties by exploring the bylaws for the purpose of community safety and inclusion, including bylaws adopted by the City of Calgary. Right, that's like my apologies.
So thank you, Madam Clerk, for reading that into the record. There are just some, it's quite comprehensive here. Number one, the subcommittee, there's a request for the creation of another subcommittee, which again, this falls under the Equity and Diversity Subcommittee. And so my question is whether or not, wouldn't the Equity and Diversity Subcommittee contain all of this within their mandate? And why we necessarily have to, the recommendation is to create another subcommittee, which I'm not certain is necessary at this point, just for my argument.
So one of the recommendations that we heard from other speakers and from other places was actually a recommendation to have an advisory council specific to 2S LGBTQ clubs issues directly to EPC. But we thought that that probably was a bit of an overshoot. So we were trying to find a way to align it to our existing structure and understanding the importance and the lens needed for these specific issues, and that these groups are often our most vulnerable groups. We felt strongly that its own subcommittee would make sure that that lens was looking at everything that it needed to be, because it does cover everything that the city is involved in.
So, I mean, there's some things that kind of engage governance for me in terms of the terms of reference for the Human Rights Committee of Council, and which I think it's important to understand that the Human Rights Committee of Council is one that has a particular terms of reference as advising mayor and council. And there's some pieces in here that dive right into administration in the words, so that the subcommittee include the City of Winnipeg equity and participation of departments, union stakeholders. That is skating right beyond the terms of reference, in particular, the role of the coordinator of the Human Rights Committee of Council, in my opinion, Mr. Chair. I think that, I wouldn't be in a position to vote on this today or support it. I would want to put it on next month's agenda, as this is the first time sort of reading it, and want to take it back with to kind of look at whether the mover would be interested in some friendly amendments that doesn't necessarily contradict the terms of reference as they're laid out by council. That's not to say, people can't meet outside of this as a structure, but this is the structure that, is granted to this committee by council. And there's a few things that, there's a few interplay with administration that just isn't necessarily the intent of the Human Rights Committee of Council as it's laid out in our current terms of reference. The coordinator isn't in a position to direct, to direct and change the terms of reference. That's a council purview. Moreover, council doesn't direct particular business units of the public service. That is a relationship we have with our statutory officers. So you don't have to, be concerned about that. But as, but I do. So I want to just, there's a few things where it's implicating, staff, and because the wording is, that the committee coordinator be directed to do all things, that just is not correct in the manner in which we move things up into council. So I'm happy to support the committee for, in crafting a motion that can be understood within our system and our terms of reference, and moreover, how we relate as a political body, i.e. this is a committee of council, right, to the administration. And right now, given some of the scope of and how it's stated, that's difficult. It's also interesting that there's not an implicit ask to some of the not-for-profits. One might include Rainbow Resource Center, one might include Clinic, but that's an ask to them. So that, interesting wording. So if it's an offer, Mr. Chair, because I am but one voice on this committee. It's an offer, but it's my opening thoughts on the motion.
So is there, to lay this over to the next meeting, take it off the agenda for now, lay it over to the next meeting to have the opportunity to go back and recraft some of the wording?
It's for discussion. It's a thought. It's a thought. Because right now, as it's worded, I won't be able to support it. It doesn't mean other people won't want to, but when it gets to other committees of council, I think some of the issues where it engages the terms of reference and the administration will be pointed out again.
Okay, I believe Lizzie has a question. Go ahead, Lizzie.
Hi, yeah. No, I just wanted to say, I strongly agree. I think that this is a great idea, but I think that this particular motion is kind of in its infancy. I think that there's a lot of, technicalities and certain language that needs to be reworked. However, I just want to say on the record as well that I am in favor of a 2S LGBTQ plus subcommittee, just given the significant rise in hate and violence and rights violations, especially aimed towards to us LGBTQ and gender diverse youth. I think this is a wonderful idea, and I think that particularly the Article R, investigating gaps in human rights legislation, which requires a party to file a formal complaint against another party or parties by like basically closing that gap by exploring safe community bylaws. I just wanted to mention I had given Mary some information on the city of Calgary and a couple other cities and bylaws that they have that create safe buffer zones and safe spaces, which I think should be explored at a broader scale than just looking at 2S LGBTQ plus safety, because it's meant to create anti-hate spaces in general. But yeah, I think this probably should be, you know, like work out the kinks and look at, you know, strongly looking at creating this subcommittee, but also creating it in a way that it's within the scope of the terms of reference and aligns with the Human Rights Committee of Council, but also, you know, creates a structure that can create and foster change.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ellie.
Just wanted to make one comment that a lot of the recommendations that were compiled from our initial presentation, so Rainbow Resource, QP, and I can't even think of another one right now. But the reason that I'm wanting to say it is they are the ones that provided, these organizations are the ones that provided, you know, having them included in the resources. So including Rainbow Resource Center and Clinic in these resources, like these are all recommendations from the organization. So that's where that stemmed from. It wasn't like a direction of us saying that these people have to be involved. So that's where these recommendations came from. But I think that those comments that were all provided today are great and make sense to me.
So clearly there is, and again, it's important to address the issues that are stemming from the rise in our communities that we're seeing against LGBTQS communities. But in doing so, we want to do it where you know, it's thoughtful in intent, capturing all of the relevant points that we need to capture, and in such a way from a governance perspective that we're able to do that and advise the Human Rights Committee of Council and thereby council. So again, I think what's on the table right now is that we lay it over to the next committee meeting, and in that time have additional discussions on how it could be reworded to fit within the terms of reference and the scope of the work that we do here on the Human Rights Committee of Council. So with that, I'll call the question. Do I have a motion to lay it over? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. You got all of that? Okay. On to item 9, routine committee budget updates.
Yeah, I have submitted it. It's from January 9th to May 6th. If there's any questions at all, please let me know.
Okay. Any questions at all? So I'll need a mover to accept this as information. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, item 10, I think we have staff that are here, City of Winnipeg staff that are here to speak to this as well. The motion was presented by Angie Conrad. Angie, do you want to speak to the motion?
Is the process for me to read it out in its entirety?
Yeah.
Okay, so whereas the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee of Human Rights Committee of Council has done some rigorous recruitment and has successfully built a strong subcommittee comprised of accessibility subject matter experts. And whereas the Accessibility and Inclusion Subcommittee is made up of passionate people with personal and professional lived experience. And whereas the subcommittee has prioritized 3 main areas to focus on, built environment, transit, and access to communication. And whereas the subcommittee has members from the deaf and hard of hearing community, and they have brought valuable insight to the barriers faced when accessing communication for the city of Winnipeg. And whereas per the Accessibility for Manitobans Act, or the AMA, all documents and information on the decision-making information system should be available in Braille and plain language. And whereas the HRCC and City of Winnipeg do not currently provide American Sign Language, or ASL, for many of their live meetings or public announcements. And whereas all live meetings currently are not accessible for deaf and hard of hearing people. And whereas public announcements regarding emergencies and or important updates are not currently accessible or inclusive. And whereas every Winnipegger deserves to access to important information. Therefore, be it resolved that the Executive Policy Committee be requested to direct the Winnipeg Public Service to report back within 120 days on expanding inclusive and accessible communication offered through the City of Winnipeg, including that all documentation published on the decision-making information system be available in Braille and plain language, that communications issued by the City of Winnipeg offer image description and pictorial language options as an alternative format, that American Sign Language, or ASL, interpretation be provided at all City of Winnipeg service announcements, including emergency advisories and announcements from the Mayor's office, that ASL interpretation be provided for all public committee meetings, including Council, the Executive Policy Committee, Standing Policy Committees, Community Committees, and ad hoc committees of Council, preferably via live stream, but at a minimum for attendees watching live. And finally, that closed captioning be included in all videos produced by the City of Winnipeg.
Thank you. So at this time, I do know that we have two members of our, well, a member of our public service and our Winnipeg City Clerk here in attendance at the meeting today. I'm wondering if I can call upon our Director of Communications, Felicia Wilshire, to provide some information with respect to what our corporate communications provides along these services. Felicia? Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, not all the pieces noted in there are under my purview. That's why.
Yeah.
Carlos Smith.
So for the committee's edification, could you just announce your names and your titles for the City of Winnipeg? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Felicia Wiltshire. I'm the city's Director of Customer Service and Communications.
And I'm Carlos Almero. I'm the City Clerk.
So from my perspective, I can speak a bit to items number 2 on the motion and number 3. In regards to image description and pictorial language, so that is something that the city is attempting to do more regularly as part of the website redevelopment. As we're working on new portions of the website, everything should be including pictorial descriptions right now. As well, we're working on doing that with social media. We're running into a handful of challenges that we're trying to figure out how to resolve when it comes to paid advertising and the limitations of social media for us to include those descriptions. But that's actually, as a result of seeing this come through, that's something that my staff are now investigating of how we can do a better job.
8771.
Sorry? Okay, sorry, thanks. But definitely we can provide more information if Executive Policy Committee does ask for a report back from us on that and what that would look like. In terms of the use of American Sign Language, I can speak a bit from the announcements side of it. So that is something that was brought to our attention during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the importance of the inclusion of ASL for public service announcements. So we were utilizing that through COVID-19, obviously.
It does come at a tremendous cost though, that is outside of what we have available at our budget. So we have since used it when it's a public emergency. So if it's items like flood emergency, wildfire, air quality, those types of events, we have not used it for any other types of announcements at this point. But again, if we are asked to provide an update, we can look at what kind of budget we would need to make that more regularly included. And then the last piece, sorry, give me a second here, because my phone keeps locking on me. The closed captioning. So when the city produces videos, we do include closed captioning on the videos that we produce. I think the issue comes in with the council videos. We're finding that there's live closed captioning as they're occurring, but something occurs technical between the transfer into YouTube when they get stored, and that gets removed. So we're doing a little bit of research on our side to determine if there's a way to stop it from losing the closed captioning.
I can pick up really quickly.
There you go, Carla.
It's a
Might segue to
great
you anyway.
segue, yeah, well said. So then right now this meeting is being live streamed through Demus, through YouTube, and it does provide closed captioning. So then what we do after the meeting is we download it and then we edit it to take away things like recesses and everything else and pauses. And then when that happens, the closed captioning gets lost when we upload it. We just found out that we do have a way to go back and re-upload the closed captioning so that it is on there permanently as part of the official record for the minutes. As an aside, what I've actually got turned on my browser, there's actually an option that you can select on your browser that has live closed captioning for any video that basically comes up through YouTube. So I can go back to meetings right now when we first started broadcasting, I guess in the early 2000s. Sure. And I can actually watch meetings and still see the closed captioning that is provided through YouTube. That way. But again, it's something that we are
Browser generated?
I'm sorry?
Browser generated?
I think it's browser generated. Yeah, I think it's an option that you can just say provide text for all audio. So.
And what browser are you using?
I'm using Google Chrome.
Google Chrome. So for those that are using
Yeah.
Explorer or Apple.
I'm not sure if that option is still available on there as well. But in order to avoid that going forward and actually even going backwards, I think we're going to go back and start uploading the text. So then that the closed captioning does come up when you actually see the videos up in Demus. And I can go on Demus if you want a little bit more. If there's any questions, please feel free to stop me as I'm going. But Demus itself, again, you're well aware, councillors, that the program is quite old, and it does have its limitations. But the one thing that it does do, because it is PDF-based documents, they are optical character readers, recognition, not reader, OCR. And what that does is that allows individuals with a certain software to basically read the text that's on screen. We do have some people that actually do use it. And it's still working well. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Having said that, the great news with Demus is that we have funding approved in this year's budget to redo Demus. And one of the lenses that we're certainly going to be looking at is the accessibility lens in Demus and making sure that it meets accessibility standards. We're still very early in the process. Again, the funding was just approved this year. So it's something that we're going to be working towards with IT to making sure that that's addressed.
So in an average council meeting, EPC meeting, standing policy committee meeting, how many pages on average are produced?
I can speak to council because that's typically the largest meeting. So remember the days when we used to print them. And right now, I think we're anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500. Pages are actually produced, not documents if you want to call them, but as individual pages in an agenda. I'd say that's probably in the average range or the normal range.
And in terms of question or number one, that all documentation published on Demus be available in Braille and plain language. I mean, how prohibitive would that be from a cost perspective?
We do have some experience in working with Braille. As part of elections, something that we do is we do provide a Braille ballot for individuals that want to vote that way. We used to go through CNIB locally, and then I believe that they stopped producing that as a service. I'm not sure if that's something that exists again. And then we had to go to, for a while there, we actually were sending out our documentation to Toronto to actually have the ballots translated, and then we get them back here. But then we actually found an individual locally that was doing that for us. It was time consuming. I'm not overly familiar with the process, but it's something that's been a challenge for us. And what we've done as a matter of interest is we have what's called a ballot marking device. And the ballot marking device now allows individuals to mark a ballot through the use of it's like a keypad that navigates them, that they can actually just use by touch. And then we also have something that's called a sip and puff, where it's a sip and puff. So individuals that maybe don't have the use of their arms can use sip or puff to answer prompts to help them mark their ballot. So there's a number of other mechanisms that we're trying to go towards to still make the voting accessible because of our challenges in having the Braille produced. And then another challenge that we conceivably could have with that is the timelines that we're actually governed by to produce agendas. We have a 4-day publication time before the meeting that we actually have to publish agendas. Translating a 1,400-page document to Braille might be difficult, but certainly something that we could look into and find out what if it can be done and the time frame that it takes to translate something like that.
So is there a requirement to translate to French? Or
There is
provide those services?
Yeah, I think I could be corrected, but I think we just have to provide that service when available, as requested.
Okay. So are you aware, aside from SIP and PUF and the OCR technology, are there any other technologies that address those with visual impairments to allow more inclusivity in terms of interactions with DEMIS and that population?
So that's something that we would be looking at as part of this process in the redevelopment of DEMIS, the new DEMIS. That's something that we would be looking at incorporating into this new app.
Okay, so it's part of the scope.
Yes, it's probably one of the biggest lenses that we're going to be using. There was public engagement that was done part of the governance review, and that was part of the feedback that we received.
Okay, thank you. In terms of ASL services and announcements, and you touched upon announcements coming out of the mayor's office, service announcements. We're currently using live persons who perform that service as part of that communication strategy. Again, using technology, or other technologies that you're aware of that can be utilized to increase inclusivity for deaf or hard of hearing people?
So, I mean, the closed captioning option, obviously, I think is probably the easiest. In terms of replicating ASL, I'm not certain what other options there are beyond use of a live human.
But in terms of some of the announcements, Mayor Gillingham is out with Councillor Duncan at a community center, wants to do an announcement there. Are there any and we don't necessarily have an ASL person going out to that. Are there technologies that would help to make it more inclusive?
So that's something that we would have to research as part of a report back to EPC.
Are there any other questions of committee members?
Sorry, I just wanted to raise one other point, just on number one on the motion with regards to plain language, just so the committee is aware. Council recently adopted a plain language policy, but in regards to the reports that are on DEMIS, it is for the executive summaries to be written in plain language. So that is something that we're working on. It is not inclusive of the entire report.
And the reason that we went with the executive summaries is to help people understand what the context is of the report. There's, depending on the nature of what a report is, some of it requires some technical language, especially if it's a legal report or it's maybe an engineering report or financial report. So we're trying to make at least strides by getting the executive summaries written in plain language.
Lizzie, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what is, if anyone knows, what the city's requirements are under the Accessible Information and Community Standard Regulation of the Accessibility for Manitobans Act? Because I know that part of that, like how the website is supposed to provide like captions and things like that. Like I know that's part of it, but I just don't understand really like the scope of requirements versus going beyond that scope.
So the city's accessibility coordinator would be who works with Director Patton would be in a better position to speak about this. But from the work that I've been involved in that the city's requirement is when requested to be able to provide information in alternative formats, as opposed to making it proactively available in every format. So when it comes to public events, even for example, with public engagement, when we are advertising that those events are occurring, there is information on there of how to reach out to us if you require an alternative format for those types of things. The website, as well as we're working through the redevelopment, because it's a phased redevelopment of the website, the new pages as they're being launched are meeting the accessibility requirements. And as we're moving the old information into the new format, they will be better. They'll just be better on accessibility. So we know that there are some gaps in some of the older information that exists in the web.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I just wanted to note that as of May 1st, 2024, the city is included in the public sector organizations, including large municipalities, libraries, and educational systems in legally becoming as a requirement to comply. So this legislation, this particular standard, which is a third of 5 standards, came into force in May 1st, 2022. So it's last Wednesday was when the city is legally required to be compliant under this standard. So just wanted to put that on record.
Thank you.
Oh, I just, to piggyback on what Ms. Wilshire was saying, we do write a report every year since on the City of Winnipeg accessibility plan meant to be in line with the legislation. And it goes beyond some of the topics we're talking about today, but definitely is meant to be, one of the responses to the act.
So from that perspective, then, does the accessibility coordinator on an annual basis do an audit of our existing services and see where we are and where we're falling short?
It's my understanding that they're expected to provide a progress report in the interim years between when a new accessibility plan needs to be generated and published, so that the public can understand what progress is being made in that area.
Right. Thank you all for your participation and your dialogue and feedback. We do have the motion here. Item 10, we need a mover. It's moved by Angie Conrad. I would suggest that there are areas in here that we still need to consider in terms of what the public service was able to provide and the services that are currently provided by the City of Winnipeg. I do realize that there are some areas that there is room for improvement. Some of that room for improvement does come at a cost. Budget has been approved by council with respect to DEMAS and how that will eventually be updated with a lens of inclusivity. So with that, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And I'm just counting here. I believe we've lost quorum if Councillor Rowlands is not.
No. How many did we need?
8. Just a minute.
4. We got 2, 6.
6, 7. So we're at 7 at the moment. I'm not sure. She mentioned if she was coming down.
No, she mentioned. So we can't even lay it over. Yeah, if you, yeah. Hold on. Just hold on a second. Sent her a text message. Thank you for your patience. It's on her way back. Okay, so as mentioned, there are some things that are being addressed. We've got a budget for DEMAS where a lot of this will be looked at from an inclusivity lens. The public service was able to provide us with information in terms of what's currently being done. And is Mary still here?
I still have her as
Okay.
first speaker.
Again, as this motion is presented, we're calling the question. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed, carried. Item 11, awareness series update from the Equity Office.
Welcome. My name is Bradley West. I'm the manager for the Equity Office, City of Winnipeg, and I'm providing the verbal update for the Action and Awareness Speaker Series that is done in collaboration with the Human Rights Committee of Council. So, as some of the members may be aware, the City of Winnipeg Equity Office in the Indigenous Relations Division, in collaboration with the province of Manitoba, has been working on an ongoing plan to highlight many issues that contribute to the ongoing crisis of gender-based violence in Manitoba and across the country. Centering the work that we are doing, the continued opportunities within the speaker series and the Human Rights Committee of Council to amplify the critical conversation on this through various communities in the city and beyond. All of this work is happening in a co-creation model, ensuring a nothing about us without us approach is centered into the work done. Practitioners in this continuing ongoing working group include representatives from the provincial public service sector, including the Public Service Commission, the Provincial Employee Experience, Culture and People Culture Department, Gender Equity Manitoba, formerly the Manitoba Status of Women, Indigenous Reconciliation and Northern Affairs. Recently, conversations have begun again with members of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, Pride at Work Canada, and senior human resource staffing in the Human Resource Branch of Canada Revenue Agency Employee Resource Programming as a way to have voices of all levels of government participating in this ongoing conversation. We were able to incorporate this into our April presentation as part of the speaker series, as April was Sexual Harassment Awareness Month, and it was also part of our ongoing support of murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls to Spirit Plus peoples, and lead up for the prep of the May 5th Red Dress National Awareness Day. There has been some recent staffing changes within the Equity Office, and as a result, we revisited the scheduled programming for the speaker series, moving the Deeper Dive series with lived experience experts from the deaf and hard of hearing community from May into the fall. I will be filling some of that gap in May, doing a presentation around Pride. So March 13th, we had Jessica Dumas present her session on the rise of Indigenous women. On March 21st, Dr. Lavallée did a presentation on social inclusion and exclusion of First Nation citizens in Manitoba. And this was centered around the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. As it mentioned, April 30th, April being Sexual Harassment Awareness Month, we had Anna Huard, who is the MMIW G2S liaison for the Southern Chiefs Association with the Pathways to Healing program. And she did a presentation on the stigma of reporting, which took an intersectional look at the issue of gender-based violence, specifically with Indigenous communities, exploring justice, racism, manufactured poverty, intergenerational trauma, and colonialism, and focused on systemic changes needed to address the root causes. On May 30th, I'll be doing a presentation on the history of Pride, protest, and celebration. And on June 27th, we have Dr. Youssef Sufi, who is going to be doing a presentation on multiculturalism, looking at a critical lens of multiculturalism intersecting within the Muslim community and within the larger Canadian experience of creating safer spaces for various groups, creating a pluralistic society, one that moves us forward. And that is my update officially for the speaker series.
Thank you, Mr. West.
That's right. And I would just like to say, if I could, I really support the move or exploration of ASL. Everyone in the HRCC knows the difficulties we have had in the Equity Office in the last year trying to braid in having a presenter and a PowerPoint presentation and online translation and also ASL on a platform that is preferenced by people in the disability community, which is Zoom. And it has been inordinately difficult and has taken a huge footprint of our resources that was unexpected. So I think that, you know, anything we can do in conversation to explore that on a broader basis is only going to help not only our citizens, but also members in other departments as this issue pops up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. West? Seeing none, I'll need a motion to accept this information. Thank you. Angie, all those in favor? Those carried. Okay, moving on to our last agenda item, update on terms of reference.
Yeah, so every year in our, it says in the terms of reference that we should have an annual review of the terms of reference and make any or propose any amendments to EPC for submission to council for approval. So we did have a meeting. It was not an ideal date because neither councillors could attend, but it was just the date that worked best for everybody. So we are not going to be making any motions today to make any changes, but we're hoping to do so in the July meeting, which will be we've had folks submit over email. And so if there are any more submissions that would like to be made, we still have time from now until July to make some suggestions to the terms of reference. But in terms of the agenda item itself, we did have the review. There were some suggestions, particularly grammatical ones, and then looking for more clear definitions on some items as well. And then I believe there was a couple that were around routine budget updates. And then, of course, the terms of reference amendment for the discussed 2S LGBTQIA. So if that was to go through and it would be a change to the terms of reference from the HRCC terms of reference, then that would be to include the three proposed subcommittees. So the equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion, and then this 2S LGBTQIA advisory subcommittee. So that is where we're at. We will have a full, report on all of the amendments that are being proposed for the July meeting. And so if there are any other folks who wanted to provide some comments or suggestions in the meantime, please do email me and we'll ensure that they are compiled in the report that we put forward in July.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll need a motion to accept as information. Odiemi, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Need somebody to move adjournment? Odiemi, thank you, EY. All those in favor? All those carried. We stand adjourned.